This is ThriveCasters,
Thriving, not surviving.
tackling youth issues that matter to you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of ThriveCast. I'm Amis, and today we're joined by
Nathan. I am 17 and the socials are down below.
Adam, my socials are down below.
Jed, I'm 16 and my socials are below.
I'm Malia, I'm 22 and my socials are down below too.
And I'm Lewis Cavan, and we're going to be talking about law reform today.
Okay, cool. Let's kick it off then.
Who's got any questions? Who's going to start?
All right, then. What do we think about stop and search? Because that's probably going to be the main topic of today, so we might as well get on with that one.
I think I would say 40-50% of the time it's usually done by like how people look and what area they come from. So for example, like if I'm in a very high place in Birmingham, like a drug related place where drugs usually happen, I would feel like I'm more likely to get searched, stop and search, because of like, I'm not like saying it could be because of my race, but I think there's something to do with races on being stop and searched.
I would ask this: has anyone on this podcast been stopped and searched before? Just as a question.
I have.
I haven't.
So
I haven't been affected personally by it now.
No. And as you were stopped and searched, the people that have been stopped and searched, like what was the process of it? Like how did you feel? Like what was their actual, because it depends on the intentions. Like sometimes they may possibly have valid reasons of searching you. Maybe you do look a little suspicious, not because of your look or whatever, but like it's in the way how they handle you basically. So in the way that they approached you, in the way how they came up to you, like how did it make you feel? Like what was the actual process of it all?
Well, with me, it was at a festival and I wasn't approached at all. I was just manhandled and stopped and searched.
That was
without my consent at all.
Do you feel that recently in the law, do you feel that there's been sort of a bias towards people of our age group and the statistics of people being stopped and searched?
I think it has, and it also has a lot to do with like prejudice as well, because with our generation there's like a lot of knife crime and stuff, like especially these days. And I feel like, because I've been stopped and searched before, just from walking around, like even my uncle as well, he's been stopped and searched, and we all feel like it was like a racial issue that we had to bring up with other people. But it's all because, I also think it's because we're young as well, and like it's more common these days, I think, for younger people to walk around with knives and stuff. It's dangerous.
Yep. What was your reaction to being stopped and searched?
I was more confused, but I was really angry about it, because I was like, because when it happened, I was walking around with my uncle, and then I just got stopped by a police officer and said that I need to be searched. So I was like, but I haven't done anything wrong. I didn't see how I seemed suspicious, and I spoke to the guy, but obviously I didn't want to like be rude or anything, so I just had to keep it to myself.
Do you feel like you knew how to react to the police officer when being stopped and searched?
Not really, because it was all kind of sudden, really, and I wasn't expecting it. So, and I don't really know that much about like what to say to them, because I don't want to be rude and get myself into trouble. So I just sort of went with it. I knew I wasn't going to get into trouble because I didn't have anything on me, but I mainly just thought I just get over and done with. I was annoyed, but like it wasn't going to be long.
I personally can't really speak from that perspective, because I do feel like when it comes to stop and searches, it's more biased towards the male gender than it is towards the females. Because me personally, like I could say that I can say that I have not been searched before. I don't think an officer could ever, well, there is a possibility because some girls have been searched before, but speaking from personal experiences, I don't know. I feel like there's more of a bias, like racial bias thing when it comes to like black males, when it comes to stops and searches. So that's not something I can speak of. I can speak from a female perspective and just say like if I was to go up to a police officer, they'll be more inclined to help me than if like a male would go up to them, because it's more of like you have not really necessary nowadays, because there are people trying to break those barriers, but yet that masculinity sense, that whole sense of like males are a threat and all that kind of stuff, it's more likely that you guys will be searched. So I feel like from a female standpoint of view, like I don't want to say I can't complain, but yeah, I feel like it affects the males more than it does the females.
Most definitely. And also, just to give you a bit of statistics, if you're a male or a person from the BAME community, you are 8.9 times more likely to get stopped and searched than your white counterparts. So that's some of the stats for you there.
I feel like though, I feel like that it does depend kind of on what police they are and what area you're in. I think that it's definitely, as Louis said, it's definitely the statistics show that it's more likely in young black people. I think I saw a documentary recently, and it said the same thing. It was young black males in tracksuits, and I feel like that's the stereotype, and I feel like it's wrong that police kind of search them based on their ethnicity, based on their age, their gender, and what they wear. I've personally been stopped and searched last year, and I know my parents are going to watch this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I weren't doing anything wrong. I was on top of a like a car park. You know, you got your story car parks. We weren't doing anything. We were just sitting up there, vibing, listening to music, etc. And the police came up in a car, and we stupidly all decided to run. I don't know why. Someone just started running. It sent off a chain reaction.
That's an interesting point, though, Nathan, to be honest. It's an interesting point, because I just wanted to say, like, I feel like, as someone who wants to go into law myself, I do sort of feel a bit out of place, given the statistics of the sort of demographic of the people who work behind the law. I mean, I just finished studying a module on magistrates recently, and 70% of them are white older males. And I just, do you feel that there's been this sort of stigma that hasn't been broken from like previous things between the police and young people? And what sort of reasons do you think, like why did you run?
Well,
I feel like there's a disconnection between police.
We literally weren't doing anything wrong. We were literally just sitting up there listening to music. But I think a couple of them initially ran because they've been up like story car parks before, and the police have come up, even though they weren't breaking any rules. And I think they got stopped and searched in the past, and they obviously didn't want it to happen again, because the more it happens, the more like in the files you are with the police. So I feel like they were kind of worried that if they kept getting stopped and searched.
Do you mind if I ask if the people you were with were all white or all black? Like, were they a mixture? Like, what type of people were you with?
They were all white. They're all male, all my age.
Like,
17.
do you feel like, all right then? So going on where you're running, and we're talking about, do you feel like there's a disconnection between the type of police that are policing and young people in general? Do you feel like there's a disconnection between the two of them? And 100%. Where do you feel, like talking about law reform, where do you feel this can be bridged, if that makes any sense?
I feel as if like, maybe if younger people are more aware of what a stop and search is and what their rights are and stuff, because I think that is quite clearly kind of an excuse from police and from young teens when it comes to being stopped and searched. So and I feel like if you was informed, or like you, I don't know, say open WM on site, what on point, that's it, on point WM, say they had an Instagram post of how to react to police when a stop and search happens, do you feel like then if you was in that same position,
you'd be like, all right, then I know how to handle myself in this situation. I know how to handle police, and you probably wouldn't have run because you know in yourself you haven't done anything wrong. So there's no point in running because I know how to, and I know what to say, and I know what the police are gonna say to me. So do you reckon maybe that would be?
Yeah, 100%. Because I only ran with them because I didn't know what was happening. I hadn't been in that situation before. I didn't know whether I was going to get fucking arrested or whatever. You know what I mean? I wasn't informed of anything. So I think that's kind of why I carried on with the other people that ran. And I feel like if I was more educated on what a stop and search was, what the procedures were and stuff, then I probably wouldn't have done that in the first place. It probably would have been quicker and easier when they were taking my name and picture and stuff.
But then I feel like as much as we can give information and advice on how to handle yourself in a certain position, we actually don't take into consideration the corruption or the system of the police. Like they have certain targets that they have to hit every week, every month, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes because of this, they end up mistreating people or mistreating whoever it is that they're doing this stuff to, just because they have to hit that. Not to take it outside of England, but you can look at America, for example, that they are genuinely made to hit certain targets, that they're made to arrest a certain amount of people if they want to get funding for the police places and all that kind of stuff. So like, I feel like as much as we can give people advice on how to handle themselves, there's no way you can take away that fear of, I don't know what's going to happen to me. Like, I don't know how I'm going to be treated. Do you get it? Like, for example, the point I brought in about gender is different if you're a male and it's different if you're a female, because as a female, sorry to say this, but you do have more of a leeway when it comes to certain things in life. But as a male, there's certain things in life that you are just going to be subjected to just because you're a male. So like, in this way of how we're giving advice to people on how they can handle themselves, or giving them instructions on what to do, what to say, and all that kind of stuff, how can they protect themselves against a system that is against them already without any discussion previous, if that makes sense? So for example, using a minority, like an ethnic minority person who's just walking casually and all that kind of stuff, they're not doing anything wrong, but the police comes up to them and then the police start abusing them just out of nowhere because they need to hit a target. Like, where do we go from there, kind of thing? Like, how can you make them
But if you know in yourself that you're being calm, you follow the right way because you're informed and you're educated of what to do, if then you are mistreated by the police, then you can go through the right ways of complaining, can't you? At the end of the day, it's a service that police to the public servant.
The police are gonna back up their own people. They're not gonna back you up. Like, you're not gonna, like, there's people who have genuinely gone to the police to report the police, and the police are just there like demeaning what they've said. Do you get it? It's like it's like someone being in a position of abuse and then telling people this is what's happening to you, but no one's listening to them. It's landing on deaf ears, that kind of thing. So
yeah. Oh, okay then. How about this then? Let's try and open it up a little bit. So let's sort of, I mean, I personally have had that education because in my school, I don't know about anybody else, but we did have stop and search type things in the school and education in PSHE about how to actually handle a stop and search. But the question I wanted to open up to everybody was, do you feel that today the role of the police is to act as a threat to deter behaviour, or do you think it should be more reformed to sort of look at individual disparities in communities, work on it, and then perhaps have more of a reform, sort of more towards helping the communities?
Me personally, I feel like the whole point of
Sorry to cut you off. Just to ask a part of your question. So what you're saying is, police? Are you saying police are there to deter law now, and they should be there to reform? No, we're reforming them to help communities. Is that what you're saying? Just so I get the question.
Yeah. I'm just asking. Really, the question that I'm asking is what you guys interpret at the moment is the role of the police in communities at the moment, and what you think it could be reformed to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say that me personally, I feel like the whole point of having a judgment system is so that people can. It's like I forgot the word for it. You know when someone goes away for a certain amount of time to get better and stuff like that. I forgot what it's called.
Rehabilitation.
That's the one. Yeah. If you're doing something wrong, and this might be more of a naive or ignorant point of view, but it is a point of view that could work if people actually applied it, right? Everyone, when people are doing things wrong, it's like most of the time it's because they're also facing something in their life that they need to deal with. When the police come in, say for example you're rubbing a stone, all that kind of stuff, most of the people that get prison, that go to prison because of robbing a place, is because they're trying to provide for their family. They're trying to do something, like they're trying to, I don't know, make a better place for themselves. Half of the people that are selling drugs and doing all that kind of stuff is because, first of all, they don't know any other way of life. Second of, they have a family to provide. Their mom is either not able to work, or their dad is not able to provide for them, or they're just seeing that they lack certain things in life, and this is the only way that they see to do things, if that makes sense. If the police were there and they didn't use such a harsh kind of like treatment towards people, just imagine how, like, not how much better, but just imagine the impact it would have to know that the police are not going to be there to kind of like, you know, beat me up, do this for me, like arrest me and all that kind of stuff, but the police are there to actually help me. They see that I'm in a position of, you know what, this is a young 17-year-old boy who's in drugs. How is a 17-year-old selling drugs? Like what is going on in their life that they have to end up selling drugs? You get it? So as a police officer, you're coming up, you catch a 17-year-old with like, you know, with drugs like cocaine and all that kind of stuff. Why are you busy bashing them down, doing all of this, when you could really and truly take them to the prison, do what you need, like do the books and all that kind of stuff? But what can you actually do to help this person instead of just locking them in a room, giving them a PlayStation and just letting them live their life? Do you get it? Like, I feel like personally, prisons or whatever the police's job is to do is to be like a rehabilitation center for those that are finding it difficult in life, that they have to resort to crimes or anything like that. But that's just my opinion. Like lately, I've been feeling that the police are trying more to kind of assert their power than to actually help, if that makes sense. Like the position in life nowadays has not been to help people. It's been more to like, we are the police, you have to do what we tell you to do without any kind of explanation or anything like that. Like there's some police officers just going up to people and saying, well, I'm just searching you because I want to, I'm just doing this because I want to, I'm just like, do you get it? Mm-hmm. So I feel like the whole like representation of the police system has gone so far to the negative side that I don't think people are able to trust them. Like me personally, I would never call the police if something was happening in my house. I'd rather call my mom if I was being kidnapped, or someone else that I know if I was being kidnapped, because I don't feel like the police would help me, because they have so many things. Oh, we have to do this, we have to do this. Like, I need you here and there. You're the police. I'm calling you 999 because I need you instantly. But then you come to my house and then you see the skin color that I have, and then you start to think, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like there's many decisions that the police have to take into consideration. It's not about the people anymore. That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
Can I just say, do you think rehabilitation actually does work for everyone though?
Well,
rehabilitation, if you're rehabilitated, then it definitely works. You're saying the rehabilitation that we have in place now, do you feel like it works?
Yeah, that.
Well, I've actually studied this. This is in a topic we study in law called sentencing. It's the aims of sentencing and how effective they are. And what we've found recently, I mean, the prison population increased to about 50 per 100,000, I think, between 2001. I'll have to check the statistic, but a lot of the things that we're noticing with the current use of custodial sentences, especially in young people, is about 70% of young people who end up going to serve custodial sentences end up reoffending within 2 years of being released. I believe that's about the statistic. So do I think the current system works at the moment? Not necessarily, but I do think that a lot more needs to be done on prevention rather than work.
Prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
I feel
so
like
someone saying something there.
Sorry, I feel like it's all none of it works anymore, because I've seen lots of videos, like especially in like America. I don't want to reference it too much because, like, yeah, but like especially in America, there are loads of videos of like with black people, police are like interrogating or like handcuffing black people, and this happens as well. Like even in my area, in places like London, like high population areas, is like loads of black people getting handcuffed and searched for stuff that they don't even have to do anything wrong for it to happen. And it's like you hear stories about people going to jail for how many years because they're suspect of committing this crime, and then it turns out that they didn't commit it, and then it's just
Falsely accused.
yeah, and then you feel bad for them because it's like I've heard this story recently about this person who went to jail for 18 years, I think, and then it turns out that they didn't do anything wrong. And I don't know if it was a black person or not, but I feel like it's becoming more common these days. And like with trusting the police and everything, and the whole police brutality thing that happened last year, I feel like the police are becoming less trustworthy because they're more like trying to show that they have more power over us. Because at the end of the day, if we can't we can't go up to a police officer and like be rude to them because we can get arrested, and I feel like they're using that as an excuse now. So like if we don't have to be doing anything wrong, but they can look at us and then not like us because of like our skin color, and if we do anything wrong, like say something bad to them, then they'll use that as an excuse to like hold it against us and then press charges, if you know what I mean.
Don't you feel like that's disrespectful? Like I feel like I know the story which you're talking about the guy that got arrested, and there's been many stories about people being arrested and being kept in prison for so long without the right conviction and stuff like that, and then afterwards they have like, for me personally, it's an audacity for you to repay me back 18 years of my life with 20 million pounds. I get that there's a lot that you can do, but time is much more precious than money for me. So like, how do you guys feel about people like gaining, I don't know, material things in favor of their time, basically just replace their time that was taken from them?
I haven't heard much of what people get back for when they come out, but like I just feel like it needs to stop in general because it's becoming more common, and like anyone these days, you can hear someone's been arrested for being suspect of this, and then like 10 years later, you find out they didn't do anything wrong. So in terms of getting stuff back, I feel like they should get like some money. I don't know what they get.
Oh, I know what you mean. 18 years is a lot of time in your life, but 20 million pounds
Yeah.
is still a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, right?
Not for
In my
18
opinion,
years. I could have done a lot with that 18 years. Like I
would
could
you have
have
made
made
20
more money in those
at the
18
same
years.
time? All right, then if you look at if that guy, whoever you know, got 18 years, he never had the money to start off with to go against that case. Do you get what I'm saying? So the probability of him making 20 million pounds or $20 million in that space of time is very low. So in terms of $20 million for the 18 years that you've lived, you probably wouldn't have made that 18. It's a long time to sit down, but
But then
terms of
that would depend on where you place your value. Do you get it? Like me, I'm not someone that places value in money. Like money for me can come and go. Like I can get
so
that.
how else are you supposed to get repaid then?
Huh?
Happened. How else are you supposed to get repaid then?
Bro, turn time back. Do what you need to do, like anything. Do what you need to do.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
my
not
time
gonna.
that you've taken.
Yeah, but that's
Adam,
not
what
gonna
do
happen,
you
is it?
think?
I don't have no comment on this. I'm not like really about this sector of thinking. I'm more about like I think the police breach our human rights more than anything.
Going back to rehabilitation, do you feel like do you feel like prison, right? Yeah. So you've got prison, but what about after prison? Do you feel like, because in terms of prison, you can get your GCSEs, you can do your CCS, you know, SCS card, CSCS card.
Yeah.
That in prison, you can do a degree in prison if you're there for a long period of time. But don't you think what's after prison? Because all right, it's all well and good you doing all of that in prison, but you're coming back out to the same circle of friends that you was with before, the same house, the same. So you're in the same. You go back to the same habits of what you was doing before you was in prison. Do you feel like there's enough after prison for people that have committed crimes for rehabilitation or desistance from crime?
I don't think there is, because if you think about it, like not many, like obviously you're going to go back to the same circle of friends and all that, but then again, like if you want to get employed, it's more harder to get employed after being rehabilitated. Can't even say the word, but yeah.
In terms of reform, do you feel like there should be, in terms of employers, that there should be a less of a change in stigma with people with criminal records being employed?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it will also in your criminal record that you've been in prison, and then it's harder for you to like get employed. But like if you have reform, then it's just like how you gonna live?
Yeah.
Like you just came out of prison, and then like you can't get a job because it's on your criminal record. So how you gonna live?
Yeah.
I do think it's a broader economic and socio-economic factor that needs to be looked at. Hold on a second. By the government, like there is an issue. There's a clear issue between class and people who offend, and there's a reason why people are offending. And I feel like, again, I made a point earlier that I feel like the government and the current system is more reactive rather than being proactive and trying to prevent crime. It's looking at how to deal with it when it happens. And I feel like more needs
I was
to
kind
be
of
done
gonna ask,
to
how much do you
prevent it.
think the government actually cares about its people, though, really and truly? Because if the government cared about its people, and we've seen examples of this all around the world, there's no way you haven't seen how Switzerland treats its citizens, Canada treats its citizens, all that kind of stuff, right? If the government had the best interest of the people at heart, I feel like a lot of the issues that we have now that would have been sorted out a long time ago.
Yeah.
The government is the one. I don't know much about the government. I just know to critique them because I don't like them in general. However, I can like them in general, based like without being biased or anything. I can see that the government do lack what's it called? What's that word? Do lack in caring for their people. Like most of the things that people go through, it's like we go through them by ourselves without even involving the government. It's like we only listen to the government when, I don't know, when it concerns us in some type of way, or when it's like the COVID situation and stuff like that. And even then, we don't even listen to the government. So how much, like, does the government actually impact us, or how much does the government actually help us in terms of, if they see us in trouble, are they gonna give us rehabilitation centers? Do they actually look out for us? For example, even the stuff about children being fed and all that kind of stuff, Boris didn't even want to do that until the footballer decided to do it. Then that's when they decided to actually say, oh my god, yeah, we need to feed the kids. Like, so that's my next question to you.
In terms of rehabilitation and after, do you feel like the government should maybe reinvest in community centres? And whose place is it to support these people, and is it the government, is it local council to keep community centres there? Because there has been a massive decline in community centres and youth centres. So,
and that's because
is that the government or is that the local council though?
I would say it can be both, because we don't get enough funding. How is our council going to get funding?
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into politics, but I feel like it varies for different parties in charge. So at the moment, we have a Conservative government. But I feel like, I personally feel like a change is due. I think if Labour were in, for example, I feel like it'd be more invested into the people, more invested into public sector, more invested into community centres. I feel like a change is needed personally.
Yeah, definitely.
You can see that with the development of the welfare state as well, because there was quite a lot of that after sort of the end of Thatcher's sort of period, as it were. There was a lot more being done to sort of support people in the communities, especially after deindustrialisation in the UK. But I feel like we've sort of lost that with the Conservative government, and you can see that not just in the things that they've done for their communities, but even wider things such as the NHS. There's been a decline in funding for things that the people arguably need most, personally, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. So
like, for example, okay, like me, like I would say that I feel like it's the community that does most of the work nowadays. I feel like it's the people that care that do the work, because the government has shown multiple times, maybe it's just through my eyes, but through what I've been surrounded by and through what I see on this TV news and stuff like that. For example, if you see the shootings that are happening and all that kind of stuff, it is mainly the community coming together and actually saying, we need to help this, we need fund for this. For example, the boy that got shot in Handsworth the other day, like, it is the community, it is the mother that went on TV crying out for help. It is the mother that used the resources given to her, for example, exposing herself on TV and saying, this is what happened to my son, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And it's the community that creates the GoFundMe pages and everything. So what role does the government actually play now, lads, if you think about it? Like, are they there just to actually tell us, I don't know, this is what you should do, or this is
So what
what
you're saying
you
is
should do.
there's been a decline in it then?
Yeah, basically,
Decline
like,
in government funding towards communities and stuff.
yeah. Not even that, I just feel like they don't play an important role in this life. But yeah.
So what do you think about maybe another law reform? What about drug reform? Do you feel like drugs should be classed as illegal, or should they be legalized?
Okay, so an interesting. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Oh no, go on.
I was just gonna say, I'm trying not to reference to other countries, but there's bits of information that I think would be useful in evaluating whether that would be feasible or not. But you know, there are some elements to legalising drugs in the UK which would be beneficial. Now, hear me out, it's a bit controversial me saying that, but you know, if you look back to the economic recession of 2008, the underground economy in the drugs world was actually compensating for a large percentage of the economy that was lost with the crash of the markets. So part of me thinks that it would be beneficial to do that.
To back what you're saying up there, I'm not too sure of the date, but the date that heroin was legalized and the UK brought America's law, it like copied America's law. It was like 1950s. You're gonna have to. I'm not too sure about the exact date. There was 300 heroin addicts in the UK, so it was decriminalized. It wasn't necessarily legal. It was decriminalized. So heroin, you could get heroin if you was a heroin addict. You could go and get it over the counter, and what would happen is you'd get it'd be seen as a social issue rather than a criminal issue. But after this date, 1950s or something like that, it got turned into illegal. And today, since that time, we've got over 300,000 heroin addicts in the UK. So in terms of,
but I feel like that's more of a psychological reaction though, rather than like a social problem. That's a psychological thing. It's like telling a kid don't touch a pot because it's hot, but because you've told them not to touch it, they're gonna touch the pot because it's hot. So I feel like with that, it does make sense to, like, I don't know, it may make sense to legalize a few things, but then again, like where do we discipline ourselves? Like, where is actually the self-control? Because that might make sense.
I'm not saying legalize it, I'm saying decriminalize it. So my initial question, I change it. So instead, in terms of, so if you was a heroin addict, right, yeah, or cocaine or whatever, you would then go to somewhere, get help. But if you went to somewhere now with some cocaine or heroin on you, you'd be put into prison. So how is that would the drug reform? Go on.
Sorry, personally, I'm not saying I'm for it, but I do see some sort of reasoning, like building on what you've said. Aaliyah, you mentioned this sort of psychological reaction, and we've also talked about the addiction, but that also means that there's constantly a market there for it. And currently, in the pandemic, we are closest we've been to a recession in a long time. So
we're in a recession.
Well, we're in a recession, and that you could sort of justify it on those grounds, but at the same time, I do see the broader social issues that drug addiction causes, and that links back to law and then things on pressures on prisons as well.
I feel like we lack in moderation as a whole. Like, we don't know when to stop. We don't know when to quit. For example, let me use an example of weed. Okay. So weed has has its benefits, but it also does have its disadvantages. But the only reason people say that weed doesn't have its disadvantages is because they try to just look at the positive, they focus on the positive, but weed does actually affect you. And I feel like, me personally, I have used weed before. And when the reason why I began to use weed was because I was going through depression and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, right? But then when I realized what a toll it was taking, it started to help me out for a bit. But then after that, it started taking a toll on me, where I started to depend on it and stuff like that. So there were like psychological effects, there were physical effects to it, to the point where I did not eat or do anything before actually just doing weed and all that kind of stuff. And I've realized that as much like so many people brag about it, but not many people tell you the side effects of weed, of that it can actually just put you in a mental space where you're locked in your own head. You don't like to, I don't know, experience the outside world. You become such an introvert where you're actually just locked in your own body. You become unsocial. You just like, you don't know what to do. And this may be my experience and the experience of those that I've heard around me, but weed is meant, like not meant for, but weed has its advantages of being a medicine rather than a recreational use, if that makes sense. So my question was going to lead to like, where do you draw the line of, yes, we're going to give this to the people, but the effects of it, like how are people going to treat it? That's the thing. Like if the government or the laws and stuff like that are able to legalize it, they also have to take into consideration that this has to be in moderation. Not many people's body can handle weed, because some people genuinely, like, their body reject weed. Many people's body reject cocaine. Many people's bodies reject heroin. So they're going to have to take all of this.
Many people's body reject alcohol.
Yeah, that's the thing. But then alcohol is seen as a thing that's like okay, even though people do abuse it. So like, do you class alcohol as a drug? Do you class it as what? Like, should that be illegal? And it's not. So like, where do you go from there?
Well, essentially, coffee's a drug. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's different forms and there's different levels of drugs. To add on to your point, seems that we're talking about weed. You've just said that weed has its benefits. What benefits do cigarettes have? You know what I mean? They're legal, but they only have drawbacks.
But then that's when the word moderation
benefits
comes in.
And their drawbacks.
Yeah,
so,
like
all right, so you can buy alcohol over the counter. You can ask the person over the counter, I don't want to get too drunk today, right? Yeah. I just want to have a low level, so I'll have 2 beers, right? Yeah. When you go and buy weed or any other drugs, right? Yeah, you're just buying it in the streets, and it's whatever you're given, right? Yeah. If weed was legalized, and you could go to the shop and get it, and you said, today, I'm new to this, I don't really want to get overly spaced out. Can you give me something at a low level that's low?
Yeah.
You think that maybe would stop the addiction as also? Because, and you, like you said, you were going through introvert, and you because you're getting this being criminalized, it's then farmed to be the strongest possible. Whereas if it's sold in a shop, you get a different variety.
I feel like it's just gonna like overpopulate it, because like with my age and like me and my friend groups, yeah, I'm 16, I'm friends with 16 and 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds, stuff like that. And then like obviously I've been offered opportunities to go smoke weed with them. I said no, but I'm like, so my friends have weed at this age, and like everyone or most people that I know have weed these days. So like if weed was legalized, I feel like some people, like more people would get into it. And because at the end of the day, if I was someone who like thought, oh yeah, I want to try out weed, but like maybe when I'm older, I'm too scared to do it, and then weed was legalized, and I could be like, oh yeah, I could go try some weed, I can go get some weed now. Then maybe it could be dangerous for me. I don't know, because I haven't tried it. So,
do you feel like people take drugs to kind of stop maybe emotion, like to kind of cover things up, to escape from things? There should be more social, how can I explain? Do you feel like there should be more from the government and social aspect of the community to help these people, rather than letting them go towards drugs too?
I think we've been led into the whole dimension of you don't need to speak to other people about your problems, and you need to keep everything to yourself. And though we might not admit that this is what we're being told, this is actually what we're being told, especially with the whole pandemic and everything, like you're being told to be in your house, you're being locked away and all that kind of stuff. You don't know how to personally, like, it creates an anxiety and like a panic attack for you to even stand before someone and say to someone, this is what I'm going through, this is what's happening to me, this is A, B, C, D, E, and all that kind of stuff. And me personally, as someone that's experienced counseling, I'm trying to find the positive in counseling, because when I experienced counseling, it wasn't a very good thing because I just felt like I was a piece of paper to her. Like this was just something for her to check off. So when it comes to that, it's like, how do we make it available for people to actually sit down and say, this is what I'm going through, so that they don't have to go to drugs? Like, how do you actually do that? Because me personally, I find it difficult to talk to people. Like, I don't like telling anyone anything. I'd rather just let it just settle in my head, cry about it, panic, all that kind of stuff in my own room. As soon as I leave my room, I'm a whole different person. I'm brighter, I'm happy, and all that kind of stuff. But when I get back to my room, the only way I can cope with it is either through tears, through smoking, through doing this and this and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like in a way, it's kind of like we isolate ourselves so much that we don't know how to speak to other people, and people don't make themselves available to speak because everyone's just like, well, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. Or the counseling people just want to tick you off as a, this is just a checklist. I'm going to give her these pills. I'm going to say this to her. This is what everyone's been doing to work. Like, they don't personalize the strategies to you, if that makes sense.
The narrative around counseling, how do you feel about the narrative around counseling?
It has a good idea, but the approach is very disheartening.
There has to be more approaches to like people who are like, for example, I want to expand on the point of drugs where people are saying like people are self-medicating themselves to get rid of the pain they have.
Mm.
We need to find a way to reform these people who are using drugs to self-medicate themselves from the pain they're getting. And then we going on to like CAMS, social workers and all that, they need to find a better strategy to help us, they'll speak to them, and we need more better thing they can tell us to do to help us with depression.
I feel like with counseling, it has to be more generic, because when I was like having counseling a few years ago, the thought of like just someone asking me questions and then they're just writing down everything I say, like I understand why they're doing it, but it just didn't feel right, because then it felt like when I go to my next session, it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. Like,
so is it the questions, or is it the person that's asking you the questions? Like going back to like, like police and the people that the police are, judges that the police are, it seems like there's a common occurrence here. What are the counsellors that you've been, like counsellors, CAMs, social workers? Who are these? Do you feel like there's a disconnection between you and the counsellor?
I think it could be both, because if you think about it, like the worker, the CAMS person, like if you knew they went through the same stuff as you, I think they would be able to help more.
Yeah.
But then again, like the people who haven't been through it, they're more like, going off what they know from their training, what they've been told, not from their personal experience.
And
like
do you feel like that comes across? Sorry, Nathan, carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like we're generalising, like going back to police and like counsellors, social workers. I think there's good social workers, good police, good counsellors, and then there's bad ones. And I feel like that may be down to the training. And I feel like if the good social workers, the good counsellors, the good police, I think they need to be the ones that educate rather than just off a book. I think it should be down to experience rather than written rules.
I think that the education system, as in social work, CAMS, policing, I think it needs to inflict like modern day society, as we're changing a lot. Every generation has different, reactions to different things.
Yeah, and you feel like what the system is very dated.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's got to be a lot of reform in terms of all what we've been speaking about. There's a lot of reform in the UK needed to be done. How do you feel like we're going to get that reform, if that makes any sense? How do you feel like where is it to start? Is it the employment of people? Is it the education? Is it the universities that people are going to become these, counsellors, social workers? How do we make this job desirable for more?
I think we need to start from like the education system, because if you think about it, we're the future. We're the people who are going to get the future jobs. We need to be educated more in mental health, policing, and race.
How do we make these jobs more desirable for people maybe marginalized sides of the community, because there's a disconnection between them, isn't there? Like you said, Elia, you said you don't like the police, you don't like the government, so there's a stigma attached to the system and people from marginalized communities. So how do you feel like we can bridge that gap and reform it, I suppose?
Okay. Personally, I feel like, for one thing, the government could at least try being honest. I feel like the reason why we don't trust the police, we don't trust the government or anything like that, is because we're not being told the truth. If you were to give someone the truth, the only thing that the person has to do is just accept it. There's nothing, like, you can't deny a fact. If we're going through stuff, if we're going through all of that kind of stuff, if the government needs help with something, if you were to tell the people, I feel like genuinely the people would understand. Everyone would be pissed. Don't be like, don't be misled, but everyone would understand at the end of the day, because genuinely there's nothing that the government or the police can do. But it's the fact that we know that there's a hidden agenda there's a hidden agenda inside everything that the government does to us, and it might not be
know that, or do you know that, Aliyah? The hidden agenda?
Okay, cool.
That's a very generalized statement, and what's the hidden
that's
agenda?
A very generalized statement to someone that does not analyze politics or does not look in between the lines. If you're someone if you're someone that just takes everything for what it is, then you're gonna accept everything that the government gives you. For example, the reason why we're exiting the Europe and all that kind of stuff is because the generation before us, the older ones, the ones that are genuinely like between the ages of, like, I don't know, 30, between 50 and whatever, they're still thinking back in the old days. They're thinking it's a good idea to exit this and all that kind of stuff. They don't realize that they've messed up the future for us, because now we're not allowed to enter certain countries. We have to go through certain ways just to, like, get into other countries. There's a friend of mine.
So what you're saying, that's the reason why we came out of Brexit?
Yeah, because the older generation is genuinely.
I voted to leave Brexit though.
What was your reason?
So that we didn't have to go through Europe to make trade deals with everyone else. So we can make trade deals with the Commonwealth, for example, India, Brazil. These are all countries that are rising now, that are becoming super countries, but we would have to go through Europe in order to deal with them.
Can I just say,
we can now deal with them off our own backs. That's why I chose to leave Europe. So
I think there are benefits of like leaving the European Union, as Louis said, like going through Europe to trade with other countries. That's a bit stupid if you think about it. It's going to take longer for, like, things to make a difference.
I feel like, sorry, carry on.
Oh, like
I was just going to say, like, a lot of tradespeople in the UK now who voted Brexit are regretting the decisions, because what the European did, it provided some sort of security, although it might have seemed a bit like a drawback to have to go through them, but there was still an element of stability. They don't have that anymore. So I'll give you an example. A lot of the ports down south in London are now having to close because they don't have business in the European Union, because of the additional things that they have to go through now because of Brexit. And you already saw how that became a whole mess, and we weren't leaving with a deal until very recently. So a lot of people are actually put in a worse position than before Brexit because they've lost custom in the European Union state.
In the short term. But
there's no guarantee that that's not going to be long term though.
And the one thing I'd say, okay, cool. You're thinking of it short term and then you're thinking of it long term, but take into consideration the government that we have and what they actually like, and the interest that they have in the people. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get you guys to actually look at. The government can tell you what to do, they can give you options and all that kind of stuff, but what is the reason why they're telling you to do this? For example, the whole thing with Brexit and all that kind of stuff, right? The amount of people now, like there's university students who are losing scholarships in a different country, in the European countries, because of Brexit. Like they can't go there. This is something that they were relying on. Like this is something that the family were relying on for them to get a better education and all that kind of stuff. And what I mentioned as well about people not being able to do business outside the countries and everything. We're basically becoming an independent country, but it doesn't look like they thought it through. For example, it took them so long just to close the deal to end up not even having a deal to benefit us in any type of way.
And that's a valid point.
Like, where do we actually come from? Because the government is telling us, you know what, this is what we want you to do, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, but they don't have a stable plan. If you had a plan towards the Brexit and all that kind of stuff, if you had a plan, even COVID, the pandemic, guys, the pandemic, what plan was so stable in this pandemic that people
I think we're going away from the reform at the moment.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, sorry.
That could be another definitely
Podcast.
another podcast. But Brexit's a bit too big to be
Yeah.
talking about it for now.
I was just gonna say that. What I was gonna say was the reform could be if the government, the police, and whoever else was trying to rule over us was just honest with us. Our country, me personally, I would be more understanding and I would be more abiding of the laws if they were being more honest. You can't expect me to abide by your laws if you're not telling me everything. Does that make sense? That's me entering a deal without really
is that because the people that are making decisions now, government, police, and the people in the system, there's a massive they're not familiar with people on the ground now, and the disconnection has become more and more over the past 20 to 30 to 20 years.
Definitely,
you know what I mean? It's just
definitely.
become more and more.
It's been, I feel like they're following the trends of like other countries, for example, like Chinese and Korea and stuff like that, and basically just placing people in power that they want to empower. It's not about people who have experienced it anymore. Because if someone that lived in this world, or someone that lived like a normal person like us was up to go into government, money might persuade you, but the whole fact of like you lived through this and you've seen what it does to you, and you don't want someone else to go through what you went through, the struggles of not having enough money, the struggles of not having enough help and all that kind of stuff. There's no way you can be in a position of power and still disrespect your people like that. It's because you don't understand that you do this. If you understood, you wouldn't be saying, I'm not gonna give give money or funding to people that don't have money, to children that don't have money. Do you get it? Like it's a bit selfish and it's a bit biased, and it's just out of lack of knowledge and understanding of what the people like us are actually experiencing in life. Like, it's difficult out here, and especially the way how mental health has increased as well. Like, people are not stable mentally, and that's because our government is not stable. We don't have a stable leader, we don't have an honest leader or any of that kind of stuff. So like, where do we go from here?
Well, I'm just conscious of the time, so I just wanted to go around and get everybody's final thoughts on this topic and what we think our sort of broader concerns are and our thoughts are.
I can go first.
Yeah.
I think my thing with reform and the position that we're in now, especially with young people, I think there's just a massive disconnection. I think, especially in the technical tech age, and millennial, is it Generation Z? I feel like there's been a bigger disconnection now between young people and, say, your over 30s. I think people don't know what music, in terms of fashion, in terms of daily life, in terms of school, peers. I don't think there's a connection there, and I think it's a massive disconnection. I think it's starting to become apparent. So the more and more, young people of my age, yourself, all of us, become and get into these positions of say, power, I think we're going to see a decrease in this disconnection. But at the moment, that's where I think the problem lies, in the disconnection between the older generation of people.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's go to Nathan.
I would agree with Louis in that one, about the disconnection, and I think that could be possibly resolved by learning about kind of stop and search, all different laws, etc. At maybe a younger age, maybe when you first start secondary school or something. I know the support is there and you do learn these things in PSHE, but I feel like more can be done. And I feel like then maybe there'd be a decrease in law, there'd be more understanding, and people wouldn't get in these complicated situations.
Thank you for that. Let's go to Jed.
Yeah, I was just thinking, all of us have pretty much said that there are lots of issues with the law. And I feel like for reform to fix it all, we just need to speak up about it. Because like with all protests that has been going on, I feel like more people have been aware of it. Because if the whole, for example, I'm not going to get into it, but like if the whole Black Lives Matter thing didn't happen, then I feel like this world would be more different, and then like things will be looked at differently. It's like, I don't know, maybe crime rate could have gone down, maybe, but I'm not going to get too into that. But I'm just saying, maybe we can speak up about it more. Maybe like more young people host events. Like, I know it's hard during COVID, but like
After
maybe
COVID.
more stuff like this. Yeah, maybe more stuff like this, like podcasts and young people speaking about what we feel like we need to change.
Can I say my final statement, which is I think the law has to be like looked at more carefully now, and so it's more advanced to our human nature now and how we are as people.
Cool. Aaliyah?
Yeah, I would say that reform would be beneficial, but only if we had the right people to guide us and lead us into it. If we had the people that understood the positions of the people in power. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna wrap up my thoughts by saying I agree with what everybody's said. There is definitely a disconnect between the generation in power and the generation who they're trying to serve. Reform needs to be looked at not only in individual communities, but also I feel like it needs to be addressed on a national scale. And as we've discussed, there's a variety of ways in which that can take place. So thank you all for the discussion today. So if you want to keep the conversation going, the socials are at onpointwn. And yeah, make sure you tune in next week, and thank you all.
Don't forget to follow us on social media on OnPointWM and #ThriveCasters. Join us next time for more conversations that matter to you.